Picture this. You are in your late 30s, right?
Yeah.
And by every societal metric out there, you are supposed to have your life completely perfectly figured out.
Right, like the whole package.
Exactly. You should have the stable career trajectory, the well-appointed apartment, the impressive savings account, but instead you have absolutely no job.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no money coming in at all. And you are currently like crashing in the spare room of your sister's house, trying your absolute hardest not to overstay your welcome.
That is just, I mean, that is a terrifying, deeply vulnerable place to be.
It really is. It completely strips away the armor we usually wear as adults, you know?
It strips it away because, well, it's the exact opposite of what we're told adulthood is supposed to look like.
Right.
There's this creeping, quiet anxiety
Right.
when you feel completely left behind while everyone else seems to be effortlessly moving forward.
Right.
I mean, you were supposed to be a provider at that age, not a dependent.
Yeah, that incredibly stressful, grounded reality is exactly where we start today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks. I'm excited for this one.
Me too. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the source material surrounding life in Smokey Blue. It's a 10-episode, medium-length Japanese BL or boys love romantic drama.
And it is so fascinating.
It really is, because what stands out immediately is how it completely bypasses the high-stakes, over-the-top melodrama you'd normally expect from a television romance.
Yeah, it really trades all that in for this incredibly down-to-earth, almost philosophical look at what it actually means to navigate the messy realities of being an adult.
Right. And so our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack how this series operates on a psychological level.
Exactly, because what's brilliant here is the show's mastery of using these quiet, profoundly ordinary moments to explore, universal human fears.
We're talking about things like the terror of watching your parents age.
Oh, yeah. And the crushing reality of career burnout. Plus, just how two people can manage to build a uniquely mature connection in the middle of all that baggage.
Yeah, we're going to look at the mechanics of how this story creates such deep emotional resonance, rather than relying on artificial plot twists.
Which is a huge relief, honestly.
No, definitely. And listen, even if you are completely new to this genre, or, you think romantic dramas generally aren't really your thing, the underlying struggles in this story are remarkably universal.
They really hit close to home.
They do. So let's start by looking at our main characters and the psychology of where they are in life. First, we have Azuma.
Azuma, he's a charming disaster.
That's the perfect way to describe him. I look at Azuma as someone whose entire foundation has just completely given out.
Yeah.
He isn't just redecorating his life, it's like he hit the reset button on a video game without saving his progress. He's had to strip his entire identity down to the studs at age 30-something, which just makes him incredibly vulnerable.
And that vulnerability stems from a very specific kind of fall from grace. I mean, he used to be a top-performing medical representative.
Right, visiting doctors, successfully pushing medications.
Exactly. He was totally at the top of his corporate game. But then he hits this massive, paralyzing slump. He sees his colleagues getting married, buying houses, moving up the corporate ladder.
And he just feels entirely stuck.
Completely stuck.
Yeah.
And the burnout is so severe that he simply quits. He has no backup plan.
None at all.
No competitive offers waiting. He just walks away.
Which lands him right in his easygoing sister Fumiko's house, where he basically plays the cool uncle to his adoring teenage nephew, Tamaki.
Which is a precarious safety net, to say the least.
Say the least. And then on the other side, we have Kuji, who represents a completely different kind of adult stagnation.
Yeah, Kuji is Azuma's former coworker from that same pharmaceutical company. But their history is pretty complicated.
Very complicated. Because 8 years ago, right before Kuji left the company, he and Azuma actually had a one-night stand.
Just one night of passion.
Just one. And then Azuma completely ghosted him. 8 years of total radio silence.
A silence that is finally broken under some pretty dark circumstances, actually.
Right, in episode 1.
Yeah, Azuma's out at a bar, clearly depressed, and his guard is totally down. And this results in his drink getting spiked.
It's a terrifying scene.
It is. But Kuji just happens to be there, recognizes his former colleague, and steps in to intervene before things go horribly wrong.
And this unexpected reunion brings them back into each other's orbit. But, we quickly learn that Kuji's life hasn't been easy either.
Not at all. He quit his corporate job all those years ago to become the full-time caretaker for his father.
Who had early onset dementia, right?
Yes, exactly. And now Kuji works as a freelance medical translator just to make ends meet.
And since Azuma is currently unemployed and floundering, Kuji offers him some freelance research work to help keep him afloat.
which is a really interesting setup. It completely subverts what you usually see in romantic media.
Oh, absolutely. There are no shy schoolboy crushes here.
No prolonged, agonizing gazes from across a classroom. I mean, these are grown, deeply flawed men.
Yeah, in fact, the show does something incredibly disruptive right in episode 1. It bypasses the entire will they, won't they trope entirely.
With that jump scare flashback.
Yes. A jarring, passionate flashback to their hookup from 8 years ago, literally right in the middle of a tense conversation.
And if we look at the mechanics of that writing choice, it is a very deliberate narrative strategy. The series skips all those youthful tropes to make a crucial point.
Which is?
That physical intimacy is the easy part for them. They've already crossed that boundary. True emotional intimacy. That is what is going to take real work.
Because Kuji has been incredibly guarded since his father died.
Right. He spent years in the isolating role of a caretaker, and that resulted in this deeply frozen, cynical, emotional exterior.
Which perfectly ties into the brilliant literary metaphor the show introduces. Like, Kuji is translating a historical piece called Song of Spring.
Oh, that is so good.
It's not just background dressing at all. The mechanics of translation perfectly mirror the mechanics of their relationship.
How so?
Well, translating a complex text requires immense patience, right? You have to understand subtle nuances, interpret the silent gaps between words, and slowly make sense of something foreign.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
That is exactly what Kuji is doing with Azuma, and vice versa. Azuma is quite literally the chaotic springtime warmth slowly coming in to thaw Kuji's frozen, heavily guarded heart.
That translation metaphor really is the blueprint for their entire dynamic. I mean, because they've already had that physical encounter in the past, the series actually builds their relationship backward.
They started with sex years ago, and now they have to slowly construct actual trust.
Exactly. Through these incredibly small, deeply ordinary interactions, they literally have to learn how to translate each other's emotional languages.
You know, there is a scene in episode 2 that entirely shifted my perspective on how this show handles that exact process of building trust.
A popsicle scene.
The popsicle scene. On the surface, it is incredibly simple. They are just sitting together, eating popsicles, and Azuma playfully leans over, takes a huge bite out of Kuji's, and fakes this dramatic, over-the-top brain freeze.
And it actually makes the usually gloomy, cynical Kuji crack a genuine smile and laugh.
It does, but it's doing so much heavy emotional lifting beneath the surface.
Oh, for sure. This tiny, goofy interaction casually reveals the core of Kuji's childhood trauma.
Right.
Kuji mentions that he never ate popsicles as a kid because his strict father told him they were just for children. He grew up completely denied these simple, silly joys because he was expected to be serious and responsible.
Which gives me a very passionate takeaway for the listeners. Give your kid a popsicle or traumatize them for life.
Honestly, yeah. That one detail explains his icy exterior without needing some elaborate melodramatic flashback.
But because if a strict parent bans something as innocent as a popsicle, they're essentially teaching their child that joy is frivolous, right?
Exactly. That rigid duty is the only thing that matters. Kuji spent his whole life being the responsible adult. First for his demanding father, and then later as his full-time caretaker.
So Azuma faking a brain freeze forces Kuji out of that suffocating caretaker role. It actively invites him to finally experience the childhood silliness he was denied.
It's beautiful. It highlights how Azuma isn't just a romantic interest. His mere presence is actively dismantling Kuji's emotional walls.
But the series is incredibly balanced because it quickly flips the script, too. It shows Kuji serving as the essential emotional anchor for Azuma's anxieties.
Ah, the dirty cup scene.
Yes, the dirty cup scene. It is devastating precisely because it's so incredibly ordinary. Azuma is visiting his mother, and he notices a dirty cup that she forgot to clean and put away.
Just a single cup.
Just one cup. But for a son in his late 30s, that dirty cup is a flashing red siren.
It really is. It's a terrifying symbol of cognitive or physical decline.
Exactly. It forces him to confront the reality that his mother is aging, that her sharp mind might be slipping, and that, she won't be around forever.
It doesn't take a dramatic hospital visit to trigger that fear. It's the small domestic failures you notice.
And when Azuma confesses this fear to Kuji, Kuji's reaction is deeply profound.
Well, having already lived through the intense, draining trauma of caring for his own sick father, Kuji doesn't offer empty platitudes. He doesn't just say, "Oh, I'm sure she's fine."
Right, which is what most people would do.
Instead, he offers highly practical, grounded advice based on lived experience. He suggests changing the kitchen lights to be brighter and installing handrails in the bathroom.
It's a level of deep, lived-in empathy that you can only get from someone who has been through that specific darkness.
It really is.
And Azuma's response to this deeply practical, unglamorous advice about bathroom handrails is to look at Kuji and ask for a kiss.
Which, out of context, sounds absurd.
Totally absurd. But it raises a really thought-provoking question, don't you think? Like, is it possible that the most romantic moments in life aren't grand gestures at all?
Oh, absolutely.
It's simply finding someone who understands the quiet, terrifying reality of watching your parents age.
That is a crucial insight into adult relationships. In your late 30s, the definition of romance evolves dramatically. It is no longer about performative gestures.
Yeah, no flash mobs or giant bouquets.
Right. It's about who has the capacity to stand in the trenches of real mundane life with you. Kuji's practical advice was an act of profound care.
It showed Azuma that he was fundamentally understood, and more importantly, that he wouldn't have to face this incredibly scary stage of life alone.
And that feeling of safety is incredibly magnetic.
It is. But speaking of aging parents, that absolute terror of watching them age forces a much darker question.
What happens when they're actually gone?
Yes. What do we do with the physical traces they leave behind? The deep dive really explores how the series handles the concept of grief and inheritance in a remarkably nuanced way.
Specifically through the storyline of Kuji's brother, Minoru.
Right. The books as a metaphor. Can you break that down?
Sure. So, Minoru's storyline centers around their late father's massive, moldy collection of books. And Minoru is aggressively trying to destroy them.
He wants to throw them out and demolish the old family house, right?
Exactly. He views this collection as nothing but an expensive, decaying burden that is keeping him tethered to a painful past.
It would be so easy for the writers to frame Minoru as just a one-dimensional villain here.
Because most stories treat books as sacred treasures.
Right, so someone wanting to destroy a family library seems inherently malicious, but the show refuses to let the audience off that easy.
It gives him so much nuance.
It does. Minoru is carrying years of deep-seated bitterness because their father played favorites and clearly preferred Kuji. To Minoru, those rotting books are literally the rotting legacy of a father who didn't value him.
But at the exact same time, we see Minoru interacting with his own daughter, and he is a fiercely doting, loving father who is actively trying not to repeat his dad's mistakes.
The duality of Minoru makes him intensely human. He is antagonistic, sure, but his motivations are entirely understandable.
And we see his rigid anger slowly soften, quite literally, over a shared meal.
Oh, the banana bread scene.
Yes, he sits down to eat a slice of the former housekeeper's banana bread, and the simple act of sharing food allows him to admit a complex truth.
That he deeply resented his father, but he is also grateful to him for paying his tuition and setting him up for a stable life.
Exactly. Two conflicting emotions existing at once.
I just marvel at how the show uses those books. They are the perfect physical manifestation of unresolved grief. They are incredibly heavy, they smell intensely of the past, they take up entirely too much room in your life.
And yet they are painfully difficult to simply throw away. You are forced to figure out what to carry with you and what to leave behind.
Yeah. And that physical manifestation of grief ties directly into how the older women in the series manage their own aging.
Like Mikami, the beloved housekeeper.
Right. She eventually moves into a nursing home. And then there's Azuma's mother. Both of these older women make the conscious choice to actively hide their deteriorating health from the younger men in their lives.
It is a devastating choice. And to really understand it, you have to look at the cultural expectations at play.
The concept of filial piety.
Exactly. In Japanese culture, the expectation that children will care for their elder parents is massive. It is a heavy societal obligation.
So by hiding their illnesses, these women are performing this heartbreaking act of love. They are trying to spare their sons from that crushing burden for as long as possible.
It is entirely about preserving dignity, both for themselves and for the memories of those who love them. I mean, Mikami explicitly asks Kuji not to visit her in the nursing home.
She wants his memory of her to remain vibrant and capable.
Right. She refuses to put him through the slow, agonizing grief of watching her decline, especially since he already went through that with his father.
And Azuma's mother swallows her own physical pain for the exact same reason. They absorb their own suffering in silence to protect the futures of the men they raised.
The emotional weight of all that history culminates in what I think is arguably the most poetic piece of dialogue in the entire series.
Oh, in episode 6.
Yes. When Azuma gets completely drunk and Kuji has to give him a piggyback ride home.
Azuma is resting his head on Kuji's shoulder, and out of nowhere, he delivers this incredibly intimate observation. He says, "In your hair, I can smell the scent of your house and the smell of an old man."
Which, on the surface, telling a romantic partner they smell like an old man sounds like an insult.
It really does. Sounds hilarious out of context.
But the underlying mechanics of that scene reveal something profound.
It is the ultimate sensory acknowledgement of Kuji's grief, isn't it?
Exactly. Azuma intimately knows the history of that house. He knows about the years of caretaking, the exhaustion, and the deep sorrow that Kuji carries with him every single day.
The scent of that old wood, the lingering scent of his late father Azuma, recognizes all of it, and he doesn't pull away.
He accepts Kuji's pain in the most intimate, unfiltered way possible. He even admits later that he always pictured Kuji growing old in that specific house, looking out at the garden.
Wow. So Azuma is witnessing the future that Kuji lost when his brother decided to tear the house down.
Yes. So if we look at the reality of their situation, you have two men carrying immense family trauma, career instability, and a deeply complicated history. You have to ask how they actually integrate into each other's lives.
Right, because with all this shared vulnerability, you would expect them to rush into defining the relationship.
Maybe put a ring on it or strictly label themselves as partners to create a sense of security.
But they completely avoid doing that. For the vast majority of the series, they hover in this undefined space.
It's a situationship, somewhere between former colleagues and friends with benefits.
And the show frames this brilliantly in episode 5 through a very specific metaphor. Azuma finally lands a stable job teaching at a cram school.
Which, for context, in Japan's highly competitive education system, getting a job at a cram school or juku represents a significant return to stability. It is a demanding but secure, respectable career move.
But taking this job means Azuma has to stop doing freelance work for Kuji, and at the exact same time he takes this job, he is also trying to quit smoking.
It's such a great framing device. The writing constantly aligns Azuma's attempt to quit cigarettes with his attempt to pull away from Kuji.
The underlying implication being that Kuji has become a deeply comforting, almost addictive habit for Azuma, much like nicotine.
Yes. Kuji represents this safe space outside of societal expectations.
So as Azuma tries to integrate back into the rigid, responsible corporate world of the cram school, he keeps finding excuses for one last drag of Kuji's presence.
He creates reasons to go back to Kuji's house because he can't quite let go, even when his logic tells him he needs to move on and be a traditional, responsible adult.
Yet what is incredibly refreshing is how entirely drama-free they are about this ambiguous dynamic.
Oh, totally. Like later in the series, when Kuji has to travel abroad for a translation assignment.
Sporting that bizarre undercover spy-style goatee and sunglasses.
That visual choice definitely adds a touch of levity. But despite the physical distance, the narrative doesn't manufacture any long-distance angst.
There is no catastrophic miscommunication that tears them apart.
None. They simply check in with each other. They explicitly communicate that they do not want a traditional marriage. They prefer what they call a comfortable distance.
You know, we live in a society that is absolutely obsessed with defining things. We want the marriage certificate, the shared mortgage, the clear-cut labels.
Right, the milestones.
Yeah, so it is easy to look at two people seeking a comfortable distance and assume they are just terrified of commitment. But when you look at the deep level of care they provide each other, it challenges that assumption.
Does seeking a comfortable distance without labels mean they're afraid? Or is it actually the pinnacle of adult maturity?
Exactly. Is it the ultimate maturity to look at societal norms, throw them entirely out the window, and custom build a relationship framework that fits your exact specific emotional needs?
That raises a vital question about how we define a successful relationship. Success doesn't have to mean reaching a predetermined milestone like marriage.
True maturity is recognizing what realistically works for you and your partner.
Because Kuji and Azuma don't need a legal document to prove their commitment. They prove it by showing up for the things that actually matter.
Like talking each other through the agonizing grief of losing a family home or navigating the terrifying identity crisis of a major career change.
And the grounded reality of their bond is beautifully reinforced by how the supporting cast reacts when Azuma slowly begins to come out.
Oh, it is incredibly wholesome, largely because it lacks the intense melodrama usually associated with coming out narratives.
Like when he casually tells his friend Hara,
She's a 50-year-old earthquake survivor taking translation classes to rebuild her own life.
her reaction is just a masterclass in quiet respect. The show allows you to see her processing the information in real time.
She doesn't offer a grand performative monologue about acceptance.
No, she simply adjusts her worldview, treats the information with the utmost respect, and continues being his friend. It is exactly the understated validation Azuma needed in that vulnerable moment.
But the scene that completely breaks the emotional tension happens in the finale. Azuma is talking to his teenage nephew, Tamaki.
Oh, this scene.
He very matter-of-factly mentions that he is dating Kuji. And Tamaki, this young kid, just starts weeping. He starts crying these massive, messy tears of joy simply because he is so overwhelmingly happy that his uncle has found someone.
And that pure, unfiltered emotion causes Kuji to start crying as well.
You end up with a scene of three men standing in a room, absolutely bawling their eyes out with pure, unadulterated joy.
It completely shatters the toxic stoicism that men are so often expected to maintain.
It is hilarious, it is deeply wholesome, and it is a beautiful display of masculine vulnerability.
It perfectly brings the emotional journey of the series full circle. I mean, if you contrast that joyful, tear-filled scene with the flashback from 8 years ago, the character growth is staggering.
8 years ago, Kuji was spiraling.
He was lashing out, isolated by his caretaking duties, and physically walking away from Azuma into the dark because he was terrified of letting anyone in.
But now...
Now, he is standing in a brightly lit room, weeping tears of joy with his partner's family. He didn't walk away this time.
And he solidifies that choice not to walk away in a very quiet, profound manner. In the present timeline, when they finally spend the night together again, Kuji holds onto Azuma, and then he gives Azuma a spare key to his house.
In the understated, careful language of this particular story, handing over that house key is their deeply personal version of a marriage proposal.
And the visual direction of the finale captures this thematic transition beautifully. Throughout the entire season, the opening credits feature a tight shot of a closed flower bud.
But in the final episode, that bud finally blooms into a full flower.
It leads into this stunning, sunlit scene where Kuji is looking at Azuma, bathed in the morning light, and he simply says, "The number of days I never want to forget keeps growing."
It is the ultimate arrival at a sense of peace.
But the journey to that peace wasn't easy, and the true final lesson of the series actually comes from Azuma's mother.
Right. Despite her rapidly declining health and the fear surrounding it, she shares a very simple, grounded life philosophy with her son.
She says, some good days, some bad days, but that's just how it is.
She tells him about a recent trip she took to a beautiful rose garden. Her underlying point is that life will inevitably be filled with grief, with aging, and with profound loss.
But instead of letting the bad days consume you, you have to consciously, actively choose to focus your energy on the rose gardens.
It is a vital reminder. We spend vast amounts of our lives agonizing over whether we are hitting the right milestones, worrying about the inevitable decline of our parents, or feeling like we are fundamentally failing at this concept of being an adult.
But perhaps true adulthood is simply accepting the chaotic, messy reality of it all and choosing to cherish the quiet, good moments anyway.
Exactly.
So, look around your own room for a second. Earlier, we analyzed Minoru's struggle with his father's massive, moldy collection of books, the heavy physical weight of the past that gets left behind.
Yeah.
Think about the physical objects, the metaphorical books that you are collecting in your own life right now. What story will those items tell the people you eventually leave behind?
That's a huge thing to consider.
It is. But perhaps more importantly, while you are so busy building that life and collecting those things, are you remembering to fill your actual days with small, quiet moments that you never want to forget?
That is a beautiful, necessary question to carry with you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next one.